So today we are going to look at different economic systems and what makes them different. At the heart of all this is what we covered yesterday, which is the idea of an economy. Do you remember what an economy is? As you attempt to try to answer this, do so in your own words. This may be difficult, but it's worth your while as far as your long-term and deeper understanding of the terms we're going to attempt to add to your vocabulary. It's okay to look at your notes and see the textbook definition, but then try to make sense of that by explaining it in your own words. Again, what is an economy? If you remember, the textbook defines an economy as a system for making choices about the ways to use scarce resources to make and distribute goods and services to fulfill people's needs and wants. Or, in other words, it's a system to make, sell, and buy goods and services. Remember, goods are physical items pulled from store shelves, whereas services are when you pay someone to perform a task for you. This could be because you don't want to spend your time and energy performing the task, like, say, mowing your grass, or it could be because you don't possess the skills to perform a job, like, say, repairing your air conditioning unit. Understand that different countries, for a variety of different reasons, have different ways of making, selling, and buying goods and services. So today, we'll look at two different economic systems, something called a free market, and compare and contrast that to a command economy. Not all countries easily fit in a specific box when we attempt to classify their economies. Just like when we attempt to classify animals as mammals, birds, fish, etc., we run into weirdos like the platypus, bats, and whales. The same can be true of classifying economies. When we compare and contrast economies for the purpose of defining them, giving them a name, we can look at one characteristic of that economy to give a pretty effective way of classifying that economy. That one factor that we'll use to give us this greatest insight is government control, as in how much control does the government have over the economy within whatever country it is we're trying to classify. So at the top of the slide, you can see a spectrum that on the left reads command, public ownership, and centrally planned. On the left side of this spectrum, we would find countries in which the government makes all the decisions related to the economy. On the right hand, where you see market, private ownership, and laissez-faire capitalism, we have 100% freedom from government control. Which end of the spectrum would we find the United States? If you guess closer to the right-hand side with market and private ownership, you are correct. It is also important to note that no country falls all the way to the left or all the way to the right. Most countries are to the center and outwards from there. Even the United States, with its high value on freedom, still has a fair amount of government control as it relates to the economy. However, when compared to other countries, that control is limited. As we go throughout the year, you'll be presented with more concrete examples of how this is true. For now, understand that the key characteristic that will allow us to define an economy within a country is freedom versus control. Here on the next slide, we see where some countries you may have heard of and have some idea about fall on the spectrum of freedom versus control. Pay attention to the fact that the United States, despite its love of freedom, does not embrace a 100% free market. In fact, in this particular ranking, which is the Economic Freedom Index, the United States checks in as the 17th most free economy on the planet. Let us begin to look more closely at the two different types of economies we've introduced. Since you have some familiarity with the United States economy, let's look at market economies first. Market economies are economic systems in which individuals like you and me and businesses own the resources used to produce the goods and services. Remember, all businesses require resources, whether they be the natural resources like oil or precious metals you have already had some familiarity with, or the human variety like skills, knowledge, etc., that we just recently introduced. All businesses need resources. In a market economy, these resources are privately owned by the citizens of the nation. This idea of private ownership is not something that exists in all countries around the world. While we will attempt to use the term free market to define the type of economy we're currently learning about, you will also hear terms like free enterprise and capitalism. Both of those terms describe a market economy. They are synonyms. It's similar to the idea that you can refer to a dog as a canine, a pooch, or man's best friend. In the end, a dog, canine, whatever, all have four legs, a tail, and can bark. Hence, just know market economies also can be labeled as capitalist economies because they embrace capitalism. When we look closely at market economies, economists observe commonalities or characteristics they have in common. Just like a mammal must be warm blooded, have a backbone, have fur or hair, etc., a country should display the following characteristics if we are to call them market economies. First characteristic is private property rights. This is the right to own and use or dispose of and profit from our own property. In countries that practice free markets, private citizens, again, people like you or me, own property and do what they like with it, with certain restrictions specified by various laws. So, for example, if it were the early 1900s and you manufacture sporting equipment, like Abercrombie and Fitch did when they were first opened for business, there's nothing to stop you from converting your business from sporting goods to clothing marketed toward awkward teens and insecure 20 somethings attempting to fit in. The choice as to what to do with your business, as well as the risk of failure, if you choose not to adapt, is yours to make. The second foundation of free markets are markets. This allows for free and willing exchange of goods and services between buyers and sellers. And it's not always a physical place. We will look more at this later, but know that in order for a free market to function, you've got to be able to bring buyers and sellers together. That's all a market is. A place, not necessarily a real world one, where buyers and sellers can choose to interact. Hence, the need for a market. The third foundation of a free market is voluntary exchange. Buyers and sellers are free to interact with each other. When you choose to go to the store and exchange your hard earned money for a video game, a new phone, a can of soda, you do so of your own free will. You value the product or good that you are walking out of the store with more than the hard earned money you initially walked into the store with. Likewise, the store or business values your money over the physical good they are selling you. Economists refer to this interaction as gains from trade. You only make the trade, money for food, because you feel you benefited from that trade. The fourth foundational element of free markets is profit. When we speak of prophets, we are not speaking of the white robed holy man descending from the mountains carrying two stone tablets in the Word of God. Here we are referring to something else some people worship. In economics, profit refers to the money left over after all the costs of production have been paid. This is what motivates individuals and businesses in a capitalist free market economy. It's also what tempts people to take a risk and start a business and become an entrepreneur. The last foundational element is competition. Competition refers to the struggle between businesses with similar products to attract buyers. Because businesses compete, we, the buyers, win. Think of businesses that sell athletic apparel or shoes. Did you think about Nike or Under Armour or Adidas or New Balance, or the list goes on and on? Now, think of the ways that we win because these businesses must compete for your very valuable folding money. Competition between sellers results in two primary ways in which we, the consumers, benefit from businesses competing. Can you think of a way we benefit? If you suggested either lower prices or better quality products, you are correct. Understand that for every Walmart, there's an Amazon. For every Coke, there's a Pepsi. For us, the consumer, this results in lower prices and better quality. It's a win win. It creates a survival of the fittest economic environment in which only the strongest, most competitive businesses survive. The weak are meat, and the strong eat. Our real world classroom, there is a poster that attempts to explain different economic systems, as well as government systems using a cow analogy. If we ever enter the classroom, I'll be sure to point it out. With free markets, it looks like this. You have two cows. You sell one and buy a bull. I know we live in Johnsburg, but some of you may lack the farming background to fully grasp the simplicity and wisdom in this analogy, so let's break it down. One of the benefits of owning two cows is the milk they produce. Every so often, you can grab your pail, head to the barn, give a cow teat some yanks, and voila, you've got yourself some milk. You can keep this milk and consume it yourself, or you can take this milk to market and voluntarily exchange that milk for some stone cold cash. So, why would the private property owner, in this case the farmer, sell one of these money making milk machines? The motivation is profit. Even greater profit than that produced from a couple of measly buckets of milk you're able to amass after tugging on a cow teat. Basic biology tells us if we put an of age male of the species with an of age female of the same species, the possibility of reproduction is present. Hence, the desire of the private property owner with two cows selling one cow and buying a bull, which is a male cow, and putting the two together. After pairing the cow and the bull together, the private property owner may, one morning, find not just a cow and a bull, but perhaps a baby cow or baby bull as well. Now, his ability to produce milk or breed more livestock has also increased his ability to profit. Alas, the possibility exists that the private property owner attempts to make this gain from trade and finds himself in a less than desirable position. He may pair the cow and the bull together, return one morning and the morning after, and find no new baby cows or baby bulls. He may even try dimming the lights, playing some romantic music, and still return to find no additional cows or bulls. Now he is stuck with half the ability to produce milk with one cow instead of two. And a bull, remember, you can't milk a bull. In fact, don't attempt to try it, it will not end well. You could butcher the bull and sell it for meat, but that's a one time possibility. Milk production has been cut in half. So, this is the risk one runs in a market economy. The risk is yours to take. However, there are no guarantees. So on the other end of the spectrum, we have a command economy. A command economy is an economic system in which the government makes the major economic decisions. Just like a market economy has other names, capitalism, free enterprise, you may also see a command economy referred to as communism, because in communism, the government owns all the resources. In a command economy, the government makes all the decisions. For example, the government decides what products will be produced, how they will be produced, prices for all goods and services, wages for workers. Because the government makes all the decisions, countries that use command economies tend to see smaller growth when compared to market economies. Remember, in market economies, millions of individual people are constantly making decisions every moment in an attempt to create the most profit possible for themselves. This self interest in self profit has the added benefit of creating wealth for the country as a whole. Not everyone will have an equal share of this wealth, but the free market economy will generally be wealthier compared to highly government controlled command economies. In a command economy, every decision is made by a central government. And if you learn one thing later in the year about governments, it's that it takes them a long time to make decisions, hence the smaller degrees of growth and wealth. Lastly, another cow analogy. Communism, or command economy. The state, meaning government, takes both your cows and gives you some milk. Here, there is no marketplace. There's no private property rights, no motivating profit, and no competition. Here, all this has been replaced by a controlling government that's supposed to make decisions in the best interest of the people, but often does so to enrich themselves.